lifetime. It's a lifetime of stuff. So you can notice simply how they are. You can ask them to do something and notice how they do it, or you can ask them to do something. Yep, you can notice just how they are, like observing. So, you know, as they've walked in, you've noticed how they do that. As they've sat down, as they breathe, you're noticing where they look, how they use their head, blah, blah, blah. You just notice that sort of stuff. And that might be the basis of your lesson. It might be part of the information you're putting in your knowledge base about them. They might do what they're interested in, so that then you're kind of analysing the task that they've identified. In this case, it's the spent heart task, but it could be the bowing their violin task. It could be their sitting at their computer task. It could be their I can't fall asleep easily task. You know, I can't get comfortable in bed at night task, that sort of thing. In which case you use that as your sort of reference, or you might ask them to do something like, you know, we've given you we've explored a sort of a template for the standing leg. You know, you might think, all right, well, you know, they might come in saying, I feel you know, unbalanced at, you know, or let's say they know, I feel very, you know, I lose my balance a lot. So when do you lose your balance a lot? Oh, when I'm getting into the bath, you know, because I have to step into the bath to have a shower. So you can simulate that task, or you can take a part of that task, which is weight shifting, standing on one leg, and actually then use that as your reference movement, because you haven't got a bath there. Do you know what I mean? So then you create a reference movement like weight shift, looking at the standing leg. So some of my absolute go-to tasks or go-to things that I'm working with: breathing, because it's going to help everything. Weight shift in standing, it's going to help almost everything. Like the ability to shift weight, it's the precursor to, because you think about it, if you can't shift weight, you're in the same position forever. What's some other go-to things? Do you have any go-to things, Ruth, Jenny? Planes of action, yes. Yep. Yeah. So this is one of my favourites too. Is what plane are they missing? Like, what plane are they really in? That's it. Do it the other way around. What plane do they really inhabit well? Like, you know, that they really inhabit this plane well, but they never turn much, or something like that. So that's another really great frame. Is what plane do they know really well, and what's missing, and does that differ in different parts of the body? That's just an endless source of wonder and excitement that you can use as a frame to start with. Because then it also then helps you choose a position, because then you start exploring those planes, and particularly in relation to the function that they're interested in. Do you have another favourite? Oh, what can they stop doing? All right. So what thing is present in everything that you observe them doing, like holding their breath or side flip? Yeah. So these are, and just hold them lightly. You know, have these sorts of, you know, these are a little bit like, which recipe book am I going to go to, as opposed to which exact recipe, but which recipe book am I going to? Am I going to go to my Mexican recipe book? Am I going to go to my Indian recipe book? Am I going to go to, who's the Israeli that everybody's, you know, the latest kid off the block? Yeah, that one. Yeah. So, you know, you've got a brand new recipe book you want to try, but you've got these different recipe books. Otto Lengi, that's right. Otto Lengi, yeah. Foodie stuff. I don't mind it. So if we flog the metaphor of the recipe thing to its death, there are 3 different recipe books you've got, and then within that you've got you've got the individual recipes as a starter. And then as practitioners, again, I don't think I'm alone in saying that's one of the great things about the advanced trainings and working with each other, is that somebody else will have another recipe book that's got a whole new set of possibilities for recipes in it. You might, you know, But frankly, what you really like is the Women's Weekly Cookbook, because it's tried and true and you know it works, and pretty much everybody likes that gear, and you've always got the ingredients.
So when we do our...
there it is next to us, right there.
Awareness is everything.
When we do that bit of the exercise where instead of doing RFIs, you're going to... I can't remember what exactly it is we're going to do. Yeah, we're swapping places. Well,
the tutorial.
No,
yeah.
It's more so when I think you are still going to do somewhere, you're going to explain what you're doing.
Oh, the demos, today, yep.
It would be great to actually, if we could observe this.
Yes.
So the person comes, what I've observed is the person comes in and says, I've got a problem. One of us says this, and you go, yeah, right, and you reflect it back, and it's fabulous. And then you go in to do something, but it would be great to see this, what you're observing before you start.
Yep.
And then your decision-making process. That would be really good.
Because
that's what I feel very inadequate observing.
Yep.
People go, I can see their weight on one leg and they're not breathing properly, and I think, I can't see that.
Yeah. So that's exactly why I've gone through this now, so that when we do these demos today, we can and will speak to all of this stuff.
Right.
And you'll see, because 3 of us, and we've all got 3 different libraries. So and then we'll swap, and you watch somebody else, and they can use a different recipe book. And these are the sorts of things that we will talk through. So there's 2 ways that we were discussing how to do this. So the way, this is just habit, the way I've always done it is that I just do stream of consciousness. So instead of me having these little things happening in my head as I'm thinking, what am I seeing, what am I thinking, and then what am I doing, I just verbalize it, so that's one way we do the demos. And Jenny has suggested another way of doing it, where we don't tell you, but you can ask. And I haven't been subjected to that kind of quizzical phenomenon. So today,
we did that last time.
Yes.
Which was really fabulous.
Yeah.
But to me, it didn't shine the light on this
so today,
decision-making process, because they'd already started, and you said, so what led you to do that? But you certainly didn't get as fulsome a detail around this, I guess.
Okay, so today we're going to talk, and we're going to do basically a brain dump as we're working.
Right.
And do that, and you won't ask questions particularly. You can ask questions at the end, but we're just going to tell you. And then Thursday, when we do the same thing, we'll do the question thing, so that I get to experience that and work out where, because I think they're going to serve slightly different functions. Yes.
Just since we're talking about this, can I also ask, since it's been a revelation to me, your comment about you do different FIs for us?
Oh, right,
yeah,
okay.
So that's,
I feel like I say the same thing every segment, but clearly I don't.
Yeah, well, probably you did, and I just didn't hear it, but that's fine. So I guess I'm just wondering whether, despite the fact that it will be of less benefit maybe to us, maybe you would do an FI more like you, so treat us more like the general public today. This session, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a...
Yeah, Jenny can comment on that.
Yeah, Alison was asking about if we could not do these amazing FIs on you, but demonstrate doing an FI on a real person. The answer is no, because it's not what we do, it's what emerges in the learning environment between a moderately experienced practitioner and a highly educated, curious nervous system that is engaged in the learning process. So I'm blown away by the lessons that emerge with students, which are delightful and fantastic for me as a practitioner, and reaffirm that the stuff that I do on a more daily basis is not necessarily ordinary and...
It's not banal. But it is
but I don't get the same satisfaction often from working with a less educated nervous system. It's a delight to be on this side of it too.
Yeah, it's a bit like being a kindy teacher versus working in a university. There are great delights in working with kindy children because they're so fresh and naive, and that freshness and naiveness is delightful. But giving an FI to you guys is a bit more like you are graduates and of life, if you like. And so the sophistication and the meeting of the systems is much more equal, and it's much richer and so forth. And they're both fantastic, but they're different.
We could possibly comment on where we're noticing differences from Joe Public to what you guys...
Yeah. But the short answer is we do less with the public, you know, in terms of quantity and sophistication. So the manoeuvres might look the same, but there is just less. And you do more of the same coming from different angles. Whereas with you guys, we can just keep pointing out stuff. Yeah. I mean, Ruth... Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
This might be a really big ask of a few of you, but would there be a possibility if we were to, when we bring in some members of the public on next Tuesday, is it? If we had anyone that was willing, that you would do an FI on them that we could watch?
It's not a big ask, and we will do it, but we scheduled it for next segment.
Oh, okay.
I say next study period.
Oh, I'm a step ahead.
Yeah, so we will do it, and hopefully we'll do it as a series so that you can start to see. Because the other thing, of course, is when we do these big lessons with you, they're what I call the wham bam, thank you ma'am lesson, because it's a one-off. It's the quick fuck, actually. So you just pack everything into it because we're not going to work with you again, in a way. So, and life's not like that either, unless you're a certain generation on Tinder. So, you know, you're going to have long relationships with people. So you're not going to pack everything into the first lesson because there's an expectation that you'll work with them in a series. So we'll do that as well, Chelsea, is to hopefully demonstrate what our thinking would be for a series. So what's the next lesson going to be, and then we can discuss it. So if we can get somebody to come back, that's really helpful, I think, for you to see. And you'll see the simplicity of it. I was going through the notes for when I taught this segment, can't remember where else, and somebody did come in, someone with MS came in that I worked with. So we will do it. We'll just do it next segment. Yeah.
This is just a
see, the big asks aren't big asks. Your wish is our command.
This is just a thing I've been thinking about. You were talking yesterday about the contagion, you know, learning by contagion.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, from more experienced practitioners, so on and so forth. And I was thinking a useful facility in the training, probably too late for ours, but in the future, maybe to have people in their third year working with people in their first year.
Yeah.
Doing their FIs on them. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So they're going to come. Oh, right.
Yeah, and we tried it actually with the ATM practicums. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, were they first years as well? Yeah.
We tried to get, because they had CS1 were doing their ATM practicums, and we talked with Julie about using. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
Because of.
Okay.
Mm. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Absolutely. See, again, your wish is our command.
Asking questions, but the other FIs we've observed are Moshe's ones.
Oh yeah.
Are they big ones? They seem big ones. He seems to do a lot, and like Bill,
sometimes
Bill seems to.
Sometimes,
while he does come at it, you're right, in different.
Same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah, I find that a bit of a revelation too. That because we haven't really seen a more simple one.
You probably have had them with other practitioners.
Yeah, I personally haven't had that many FIs.
Okay. Ruth, did you have any comments about the difference that you noticed? Am I labouring it too much? Maybe.
I think it goes very much back to what you were saying of what people want and what they can accept. And to me, sometimes I'd give a relatively big FI if the person's up for it, but that may not be the norm. And it is a pleasure coming in here because, as Jenny said, you all have very fast nervous systems that learn quickly, so they allow us to work in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I like to think people will come back, and the linking, I think, at the end of the lesson is really important. So I'd most likely emphasise that more with somebody that I'd see in my practice, just to really clarify that, you know, they've come in for something, I've set up what we're going to look at, I've done the exploration, and then I try to nail it at the end so they can see that they've had a change or that they've got something that they can go away and explore. When here, I think I might not labour that as much because you are doing a lot more within the environment and you can integrate it a lot easier yourself.
Yeah. Yep. That's another distinction there that is different in here. Yeah. Mm. How to give homework. Yeah. Okay, so we'll model that again. I'm looking at today. We're thinking about that. Yeah. Yeah. So what I've just put very briefly to talk to that. So ending the lesson is about clarifying, maybe recapping if necessary. Now, and these are all sort of written in, you know, this is not, you have to do it because sometimes people are in a quite, you know, sometimes they're in quite an altered state at the end of a lesson. Let's be frank. You know, their nervous system is really quiet, and that's actually the point of it. You know, that's what's emerged out of the lesson. So it just doesn't take much. If you go into some great big spiel about noticing their altered their quieter nervous system, you're just going to ramp up their nervous system again and get them all cognitive. And you know that they might have moved out of that overthinking state, let's say, and they're in this deeply quiet, introspective state. So then the future pacing is not about getting them out of that and going all cognitive and recapping everything. It's just a very quiet, so, you know, notice the state that you're in. Just, you know, quietly talk them for what do you have to do for the rest of the day. Is this state going to be safe for them to be in? And if, you know, that's why sometimes we will say after an FI, look, just don't do anything. You know, if you don't have to go to work, don't go to work. Well, this is impossible, but, you know. So it's about that short-term future pacing and is how this is going to manifest in their day. And then the second aspect is the homework side of things is a couple of things for them to notice. So and picking up on what have they noticed, and it may be that they've noticed that when they're like this, or how do they notice when they're like this versus this? So they've learned something about that there is this, but there's also this. So you could say, notice when you like this, you know, in the car or in a conversation or whatever. You give them homework and like you future pace it, you anchor it to something that, you know, then you know that they're going to do. Like when they're teaching, you always teach like this, or, you know, when you're on the phone, are you like this or you like this? Something simple. Just anchor it to a few things like that, so that you're giving them the homework about awareness. And then you might want to give them a few little moves from the FI. Now that might actually be too much to say if they're in that kind of very quiet zone. So I actually now using email a lot more about just sending them little reminders, or sending them a little reminder. This is what we talked about. This is what I recommended that you think about, or you practice thinking about, you practice sensing, or you practice doing. Any of those, thinking, sensing, feeling, doing, a little homework. Or sometimes, because I have limited FI spaces, then I require a lot more homework. So I actually have a Dropbox where I've got a whole lot of ATMs, and I send them an email link and say, oh, well, you know, this is the lesson. I want you to do this lesson and this lesson. Like it's really quite formal homework, or read this or something like that. So there's a whole spectrum of stuff depending on what the lesson is. But it's always about not, and I think this is really a point that Ruth's made really well, it's not the wham bam thank you ma'am lessons that we do in here, which is like done, off you go, do what you like with that lesson. This is about stringing it together and making sure that what was learnt in the lesson has the chance to manifest in real life, because that's the point, which is exactly the same as, you know, why we do the online segments. You know, as I think I said yesterday, in our training, we had 4 weeks, then nothing. And if you were disciplined, of course, you could have done your in between segment work. Nah, didn't. So just it's the same process. Yeah. The box. The keepers of the box. Keepers of the box. What did I do? Did I do that?
I want to share with you failure experience with my FI practice with a lady.
Yeah.
She's like a kind of fixed me thing, and her pain is the whole story and all that stuff. So when I begin to see her, I think, oh, I know what you need. So she needs to move her pelvis. So I go directly with pelvic clock.
Yep.
And it was wrong decision, because this is what I noticed. But after that, she felt more pain because she was moving a very sensitive area. So she didn't came to me for some weeks. She was trying to fix herself with acupuncturist and all that stuff. And then when she come back, I asked her, and she said, yes, I was very in pain. And I thought, well, it's her pain. It's not my fault. But I was trying to understand and observe her more deeply in how she was walking and what's missing in the plane. So I noticed that she was missing the rotation. She was walking with the pelvis very straight and the legs, and she was missing this. So when I begin to work with mini rotation and all that stuff, it began to, to go better, and she felt some relief of her pain.
Yeah.
And then after we stopped for another reasons, but it wasn't because she felt pain, and I went directly to, okay, pelvic clock.
Yeah.
And she was like a kind of hypnotized feeling and sensing it. It was like a boom.
Yeah.
And it was against.
Yeah.
Because she felt more pain after that.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and because we can see what maybe the other need, but she wasn't ready to that level of movement.
Yeah.
And maybe slow down. And in my case, because sometimes I see and okay, I go there.
Yeah.
Directly.
Well, look, and that's the thing. That is the thing, and this is how knowing yourself is really important. That's why we've had the sort of the 2 weeks of knowing your decision making. What's your habit around making a decision? And if you are the sort of person that, well, I'm just going to go straight to the boom, which is me, it's not a bad thing either. It's just how we've got another repertoire in our have we got another thing in our repertoire.
Well, in the practicing with people, this is what I am beginning to understand and to know me.
Yeah.
How I am responding, or how I approaching this.
Yeah. What's your asymmetry?
Yes.
You've got to know your own. Yeah. You've got to know your asymmetries, and it's not that they're wrong. It's just that you know them, so that you know when you push through this hand, it's not going to be the same as this hand. It's the same thing with your emotional asymmetries and your thinking asymmetries and every other asymmetry. Same thing. You've got to know thyself. And just as a general tip, if you don't know somebody and they're, it's all a bit tricky, go with their pattern. Go with their pattern. Go with their pattern, because they know that, And it's a bit like it's affirming. It's saying, I know you. I'm with you. I'm honouring your story. I'm observing your pattern. I'm getting to know you. I'm going with your pattern. That's a good question. Support them in it. Yeah. Because, of course, when you're going with their pattern, so let's say their pattern's like this, every time you're going with the pattern, when you come back, like you're exaggerating the pattern, every time you're coming out of the pattern, very sneaky. And they don't know it. Because you're just exaggerating a little bit and then coming back. And then so they're actually practicing coming out of their pattern. So that's the trick. Yeah. If it's really harmful, if it hurts them when you do it, then you go somewhere else in the pattern. Or go to the breathing. But anyway, yes, Kat.
Listening to Sylvia, I was thinking about something that we've spoken about in the past in terms of not taking something away from someone before they have another option.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about someone who I've worked with before who I suppose his identity was so entrenched in this movement disorder that he had, that he was holding onto it so tightly. He wasn't prepared to do anything. You know, he would come in saying, I want this, I want to be able to do this, but he could not shift because his identity is so strongly tethered to this functional movement disorder that he has.
Yeah.
He doesn't have another identity.
Yeah.
And you know, we had to sort of part ways because I couldn't help him to find this other identity because he wasn't ready for it yet, despite saying the things. We couldn't find a way in together. So yeah, and he is someone who kind of, he goes everywhere looking for something. But he isn't, it's that, you know, what are they prepared to accept type thing.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, you know, we've talked about, we establish what they want and then we establish what we think that they need. And we bring these two things together, which is your point, but sometimes we can't.
Yeah.
If this is really rigid, and we can only go so far with what our method is, you know, we can't help everybody. But as you get more experienced, you get more tools about how you can meet people more, just so long. And some of us have other skill sets. You know, you've got a counselling skill set. You know, you've got a physio skill set. Ruth's got an OT skill set. Sometimes we can help bridge. You know, you've got a performing arts skill set. Those other skill sets can help us bridge some gaps sometimes, but sometimes not as well. So, but if we're using other skill sets, we have to know that that's another skill set that we're using, and the person has to understand that as well. Otherwise, they'll think that Feldenkrais is also counselling. And how do you signal that is a whole nother question. We'll talk. So the next segment is all about this sort of professional behaviours and boundaries and red flags and, you know, cautionary tales and professional conduct and ethics, and all of that stuff is sort of next segment. So you can be unethical in this segment. No, that's not true. But I reckon you need a cup of tea. That was a short talk that became a long talk. But that was very interesting. Well, you did the talking. I just did the nodding.